We've used buttons in all of our first few projects, but let's take a little bit deeper dive into the XAML properties of the button. And as we've seen with the label, the entry, and the editor, there are properties that are shared amongst pretty much all of the views. These are what I call universal or common XAML properties. And of course I often use height request and width request and background color. We might use margin in terms of adjusting its placement with its neighbors, and vertical options and horizontal options also for placement. Now, I mentioned in the previous video that the order of the properties is not important. However, if you're going to use markup extensions such as the name for the object, I recommend putting that always first. That way it's easy to find if you've named your view or layout or page or not. So you'll always see me use x:name at the very beginning of a view if I'm using a name for that view. And then we have our view specific properties for the button. And again, some of these are shared with others. And with anything that has text, we have font size and font family and font attributes. With a button, we can have a border, so we have border color and border width. We can adjust a corner radius to round out the corners of that button, or even make a round button. And then of course we have the text in that button and the text color. The most common event for a button is the clicked event. But as we'll see in a minute, we can also include an image. So we have an image source property. And how that image is placed with the text is determined by the content layout property. We can also, of course, adjust character spacing. We also have the line break mode and the text transform, which comes into play probably more if we're changing the text programmatically to make sure we're consistent. And then, of course, padding will allow us to adjust the padding within the element to the text. And with text type, we can even use HTML coding with our text. Let's take a look at some examples of button XAML coding. So I created an app to show some examples of buttons and the impact of styling tags. So I have on this page a scroll view, vertical layout, and then our label says button. Here's our first button. I didn't do any tags in this button other than giving it a name and some text and a click event. So this is the default style. This is based on styles for the project, and we'll see later on how we can change those styles. So we can easily change at one time that all buttons have a style of red with yellow text and a certain corner radius and so forth. So this is that default style that's being applied. But oftentimes I'll come in and do additional tags. So here's one where the width request is 125, the height request is 60, and I set a corner radius of 25 to give it a more rounded corner. On the next one, button 3, width request 125, height request 60. I changed the background and the text color, burly wood and sandal brown respectively. Again, give it a slight corner radius, set the font to large in this case, and then I gave it a border that's blue and 5 units thick. Each of these have events coded. Let's take a look at the code for those first 3 buttons. So I actually wrote one event handler called button clicked that uses a switch to see which of the first 5 buttons we clicked. And so I'm looking at the text of the button. So if it's default style, we bring up an alert body of you clicked the default style. That's just a string. And I do that for each of these. You clicked button 2, you clicked button 3, its background colors burly wood and text colors sandal brown and so forth. And then I use a display alert command to show a title, button clicked, the text of the display, which is whatever the alert body is based on our switch case, and then a button that says OK. You're going to see for the other buttons, I didn't code anything other than I created the stub, because if you don't create the stub, you'll get an error if you refer to a event handler in the XAML code. Good little tip there. Let's go back to our XAML. So in this next button, I gave it a font size of 21 rather than a named font size. Did the corner radius of 0 so it gets square corners, and set the font family to Arial Black. And then the last one here of these 5 style buttons, I simply gave it a transparent background so it just looks like text sitting on our page. But it is in fact a button. So I click it, I click button 5, it's transparent background. With this transparent background, it just looks like text. The next button is our submit button. This was the one I used in the slide deck earlier. That's why I put every property on its own line. Some people like to design it that way. I usually try to just use up the space as much as possible and put several together on one line. This might be a little more readable. I'll show you later. There's actually a little utility you can download and add into Visual Studio that will automatically alphabetize these and format it this way. The next one is a button that uses a line break mode of word wrap because the text of South Mountain Community College is too long to fit on that button, so it wraps. Then I want to show you can rotate the button. So here I took basically that same button and I rotated it a -90 degrees. And then on the third one here, I used a rotation of X and a rotation of Y just to give a little bit of perspective. Maybe you might want to have a signpost with different signs pointing different directions and have those signs be buttons. That's how I might use that. So this next button, I added an image of plain icon 30 PNG, and that's in my images folder under resources. Added that in. And then the content layout says to put the image on the left and give 20 units between the image and the text. It's actually probably a little less than that because otherwise it just wouldn't quite fit on the page. This is actually a recommendation. Then I have a horizontal stack layout with 3 different buttons. So the submit button, I simply set the corner radius to basically half of the height request and width request. So it's a square button, and the corner radius of half of that makes it round. The next one I simply added in an icon, but I didn't put in any text. And then the third one made it transparent, but with the same image source icon. And it is a button. I can click on it. It has a click action or behavior, but nothing happens. I didn't write in any code. It's just a blank stub. So those are some examples of buttons and how you can style them. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the .NET MAUI Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.